So, okay, but it is my great pleasure, it has been my great pleasure for many, many years to know this gentleman to my right and to come into this community. I'm just a newbie, I've only been here since 1964, so, right? But one of the persons I've had the pleasure to get to know and really, really love is Mike Dukakis, who has just set the standard out there before us for doing good, doing the public good, helping others to understand all that has to be done in terms of public policy, and setting the way for us. And so we just especially thank him for being willing to come and be our drawing card tonight in helping us with Giving Tuesday and being here because we all love to be with him. So thank you.
This woman and I have been conspiring together for a long, long time.
I love that conspiring. That sounds wonderful.
Thank you first for having this event around the corner from Latkes. And thank you also for giving me a needed break. I'm in the middle of reading and grading 60 25-page papers. Undergraduates and graduates. And, I like reading those papers, but after about 10 or 12, you begin to so it's good to be here. But I've got to finish them by the end of the week and get my grades in on Monday. I'm a big fan of this organization and what you do. And I hope you understand that. Because both as a legislator and as a governor, Sheila and her team were doing was very, very important, folks, to guys like me, as we try to make what's happen. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're supporting JALSA, and I hope you'll continue to do so. Since the 8th of November, I find myself, something happened the 8th. Well, what happened the 8th of November is that Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes. And we should repeat that over and over again, folks. I mean, it's very distressing, obviously. I don't know what makes this guy tick, and I don't think he knows what makes him tick. And it's very distressing, needless to say, to have to contemplate after 8 relatively good years to go back to that. But this isn't the first time this has happened. So I find myself, when I'm asked to speak, being the designated optimist. We have an annual fundraising breakfast for something called Health Law Advocates, which is a public interest law firm that represents people who think they're getting screwed over by the healthcare system. And about 1,100 people show up. Matt Seeley is the executive director, and I went over there, but I can't stick around because I've got to teach down the street from Northeastern at 9. So he said, "Will you speak?" And I said, "I will speak." And I said, "No, we need you to speak. Give us 5 minutes of optimism." So, Cindy, I'm going to give you 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of optimism. Now the Swarthmore graduate. She teaches Chinese and Swarthmore.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't do too well in the language I took.
Never too late.
So,
that's true.
So just, I'm not suggesting that this ought to give you any comfort, because one would like to think that this country and this world are progressing. But I grew up in this town, lived for 6 years on Boylston Street up from Cyprus, where there happened to be a couple of bookie joints. One run by an Irishman and one run by an Italian. What the Brookline police were doing in those days, I don't know. And then my parents, when I was 6, moved out to South Brookline, which the townies call the country, where Temple Emeth is today. It was a riding stable when I.
That's where the horses were kept for bedding.
So let me tell you a little bit about Boston and Massachusetts and the country when I was a kid, because I think I'm the oldest person in the place.
Are you kidding?
This city, this state, this town were racist. They were anti-Semitic. Boston was a very angry place. when Kitty and I were at Brookline High School, about 60% of the kids were Jewish, 30% were Irish, and the rest were other, like me. And there was almost no interreligious dating of any kind, except for this Greek Orthodox kid who seemed to be able to move around, and Kitty, who had lots of friends in the Irish community. And we often wondered why, because she was a freshman when I was a senior, and I wasn't interested in freshman women. They came later. Until Kitty was 17, discovered she had an Irish grandfather. That's a whole other story.
Oh, for God's sake.
We got great news today. Our beloved second grandchild and first grandson, who's grown up in Denver, Colorado, was just admitted to Tufts. He's one of the 2 best high school tennis players in the state of Colorado. And his dad and he now play in the Father and Sons tournament every year, which is held at Longwood, the National Father and Sons. And the first year he came out here, I think he was about 14. Kitty was driving him up to Longwood and explaining to him that when she was his age, she couldn't step foot on a court at Longwood because she was Jewish. People of color could not live in the town of Brookline. Could not live in the town of Brookline. In fact, they couldn't live in Boston on this side of the railroad tracks. That happened to go right through Northeastern. They could work over on this side, but they had to go back over there to live. And that continued, folks, until well into the late 60s, when finally, with the help of you guys and others, we began organizing fair housing committees to see if maybe a person of color might live in the town of Brookline. I was this Greek kid from the Boston area. I wanted to go to a small college. I was a pretty good athlete, not great, but a pretty good athlete. I wanted to compete, and I wanted to go to a small co-educational school. And I had a brother at Bates, good school, but he said, no, you love cities, and you really don't want to come up here to Maine. So I said, where do you think I ought to go? And he said, you ought to go to Swarthmore. And I said, Swarthmore, isn't that a girls' school? He said, no, that's school.
And we still get that.
And so lo and behold, I found myself heading in early September for Bernard, our alma mater. Only to discover that a handful of black kids who were at Swarthmore couldn't get their hair cut in the barbershops in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, 9 miles southwest of Philadelphia. By the way, they couldn't get their hair cut in Lenox, Massachusetts either in those days, if they were African American. So we decided to boycott the barbershops. I became the campus barber. And I made my walking around money at Swarthmore, cutting hair on the 3rd floor of Wharton Hall. Without the benefit of a license. Don't tell the barber board in Pennsylvania. I value my reputation for integrity. But it was a great experience for me. I got very actively involved in politics. A couple of guys named Clark and Dilworth were trying to oust a Republican city machine that had controlled Philadelphia for practically 100 years. Does this all sound a little crazy? That was the world. And graduated in '55. Came back up here, and 6 weeks later I was being sworn into the United States Army at the Fargo building, and joining 30 other hapless characters who, with me, got on a train and went down to Fort Dix, New Jersey for our first 8 weeks of basic training. I don't think you've ever heard this yet. And 3 days after I got there, I had what passed for a personnel interview. You know, 5 minutes with another draftee who decided what you were going to do for the next 2 years. Except my interviewer was a guy named Harry Cain, C-A-I-N III. Who was Harry Cain, Jr.? If you get this, you don't have to take the fun. Nobody remembers Harry Cain, Jr.? He was a right-wing McCarthyite United States Senator from the state of Washington who I think Scoop Jackson beat. And I'm being interviewed by his kid, who has a file on me. I'm serious. This is in pre-computer America, right? 1955. Just one of those, you know, manila folders, files. And he begins the interview as follows. I see you ran a fundraising drive for the American Civil Liberties Union while you were at Swarthmore.
Oh, my God.
I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. And he said, you were the chairman of Students for Democratic Action, which was the student wing of the ADA. By the way, I was succeeded by a guy named Carl Levin. In that capacity.
Another flaming radical.
Yeah, I said, as a matter of fact, I was. And the interview continued. Fortunately, he did not recommend me, as others were occasionally recommended, for an other than honorable discharge. I had a friend from this town, also went to Swarthmore, a year ahead of me, named Jonathan Fine, who was held for months at Dick's because he had been a member of something called the United World Federalists when he was in high school. And the United World Federalists was not left, it wasn't right, it was for a strong UN. And it had been the fact that his father was the chief of surgery at the BI and knew Paul Douglas and Dick Newberger, he might have been discharged other than honorably. And I was aware of that. I wasn't really interested in starting my political career, whatever it might be, with another than honorable discharge in the United States Army. Anyway, fortunately for me, Harry Kane III decided to send me to Korea, which was fine. Where do you think they got that information, folks? The FBI had a tap on the Swarthmore switchboard and was recording every single,
Yeah, I was gonna say Hoover.
that's the guy, every single telephone call that went through that switchboard. And then compiling files on guys like me, who apparently they feared might be a threat to the security of the United States. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel good, but I don't feel good every day that I pick up the newspaper with this strange fellow. It's going to be our president, and who lost, I want to repeat this, by 3 million votes. And don't forget it, and make sure you remind people of this. She won big time, and he's going to be the president of the United States.
Not yet.
I think he's going to be president. And in any event, and all because of a crazy system, born in aristocracy and slavery, which should have been abolished 200 years ago. So, you know, like everything else, defeat provokes action. And I hope one of the things we're all doing, folks, as hard as we can, is to get rid of this stupid system, which, by the way, Trump apparently opposed until 2 days after he was elected. The day after, he was still criticizing the Electoral College, and somebody must have said, hey, that's the only reason you got elected. So the second day, he said, it's a beautiful thing. But this is really nuts. This is the second time now in 16 years that the winner of the popular vote has not become president. I don't have to tell you what the difference it would have made if Al Gore was president rather than got it. Got it through the Electoral College. No Iraq, none of this baloney and what we've been going through here. And fortunately, Common Cause has a plan which it's been working hard at called the National Popular Vote, which, if successful, will make it unnecessary to amend the Constitution. And our task is to get a sufficient number of state legislatures, representing 270 electoral votes, to vote, to require their electors to vote in accordance with the national popular vote, not what's happened in their state, assuming we hit the threshold. We're at 175 electoral votes now committed. We've got 95 to go. And really, we've got to get rid of this institution. This is absolutely crazy. If you know anything about the history of it, a lot of it was just rich guys who didn't trust even a very limited electorate in those days. Ladies, you couldn't vote, people of color couldn't vote, white guys without property couldn't vote. They didn't trust that electorate. And this was also essential, basically, to get the slave states into the Union. That's what this was born out of, and we still have it. Over 200 and some odd years later, and it's really a disgrace. It's really a disgrace. So, there we are. But, this is a very different city, it's a very different state, it's a very different country. And it's a hell of a lot better, notwithstanding what happened years ago. And one of the nice things about Massachusetts is that we can continue to do our thing, and have been doing it that way for a long time. So our universal healthcare system will not be affected in any way because we've taken care of that. What is so distressing is that millions and millions of Americans in the richest country in the world now have their newly won health benefits threatened again. And we're really better than that, folks. At least I hope we're better. This is nuts. We're spending twice per capita what any other country is spending on health care. And we've got millions of Americans who are either underinsured or not insured, notwithstanding the Affordable Care Act. So we're going to have to do what we did when Reagan was elected, and trust me, I mean, when Reagan was elected, most of us said, "My God, what's happening to the Republic? This grade B actor is going to be the President of the United States, and he can't remember things, he forgets, I mean, this, that, and the other thing." Well, we survived, and believe it or not, Reagan was responsible for the beginning and the end of the Cold War, to his credit. So one never knows. One never knows. And in the meantime, all I can say to all of you, because I think we share a common philosophy and a common approach to life, is that there's much to do, and we got to keep doing it. And I don't want to say it's going to be fun, but it's going to be interesting. I think the legal community in the United States is going to be very busy because suits are going to be brought every day against this guy. On the other hand, we all know what the situation is like at the Supreme Court. Scalia, by the way, was a classmate